Right, the point that I tried to make here is that when your price is P2 here, or your margin revenue is equal to P2 at this point, and you're producing the profit maximizing quantity, which is Q2, that was the first one. You were just covering your average variable cost. You could not cover your average fixed cost, and because you could cover your average variable cost, the decision for you is to continue the operation in the short run. Also, when the price lies between P1 and P2, for example, when the price is P3, where your profit maximizing quantity is Q3, at this profit maximizing level, your average variable cost is here, ABC3, which is lower than the price that you're charging. So the price that you're charging covers your average variable cost completely, and it also can cover a portion of your fixed cost, although it fails to incorporate, or it fails to cover the average total cost, because at this profit maximizing quantity Q3, your average total cost is up here at this point. So that's the average variable cost. So the average variable cost is higher than the price, so your price cannot cover the whole average total cost, but it can cover the whole of average variable cost and a portion of the average fixed cost. And that is true for any price between P1 and P2. One example was P3. So in this whole region, the decision rule for you is to continue operation, although you make loss here. You make loss, but you continue your operation because you can cover your average variable cost and also a portion of your fixed cost, average fixed cost. So that's one example here. So when you have this, that basically boils down to this particular condition where we have price is greater than, price is basically greater than or equal to average variable cost, but it's smaller than the average total cost. Even if you don't remember the graphs, you should remember this particular condition. When this holds, when the price is greater than or equal to average variable cost, but it's lower than the average total cost, you continue your business, continue your operation in the short run. Okay, what happens if your price is here? Let me use different ink. What happens if your price is here? So in this particular case, our price is P4, which is equal to MR4, margin revenue 4, and so it's higher than P1. It's higher than P1, P4, obviously it's higher than P1. And if this is the margin revenue curve, it cuts the marginal cost curve at this point. So the profit maximizing quantity is Q4. So now look at the average variable cost when you're producing this profit maximizing quantity Q4. At this profit maximizing quantity Q4, your average variable cost is here, right? That's average variable cost, which is definitely lower than P4. It's definitely lower than P4, your average variable cost. Also, when you're producing this amount of output in the market, this profit maximizing output, your average total cost is given by the average total cost curve here, this point. You can also see this point lies below P4. Right? So average total cost is also lower than the price you're charging when you're producing Q4. That means you're making a profit. The price that you're charging covers your average total cost, and you're also making a profit because price is greater than average total cost. So for any price above P1, you're making a profit. But if you are charging P1, if you're charging this price P1, you just manage to cover your average total cost. Therefore, you don't make any profit. Your economic profit is 0. So at this particular point here, your economic profit economic profit is 0, but for any price above P1 you have positive profit. Okay, you make positive profit, and therefore for this range here, let me just erase that portion. Okay, I got it. So for this range here, above P1, including P1, your profit is greater than or equal to 0. Either you're making 0 economic profit, or you're making some positive profit. So you continue operation. And this boils down to this particular condition that price is greater than or equal to average total cost. So when your price, the price that you're charging is either equal to average total cost or greater than average total cost, you're either making 0 economic profit or you're making positive profit, and you continue operation. Okay, so this is the condition that we get from this graph. One last case is where we have our price lower than P2. Okay, so let's take a price lower than P2. We use a different ink. Suppose that your price is this, the green line, let's call it P5. And your profit maximizing quantity is given by the intersection between the marginal cost curve and the marginal revenue curve. P5 equals MR5. So this is your profit maximizing quantity, Q5. Now what you see from here is that when you're producing this amount of goods, your average variable cost is here. That's the average variable cost, which lies above the price that you're charging. So your average variable cost is higher than the price that you're charging. So you're making a loss here. Okay, you cannot even cover your average variable cost, let alone the average total cost. And therefore, for any price which is lower than P2, okay, for any price which is lower than P2, we are making losses. We cannot even cover our average variable cost, and we shut down temporarily. We discontinue our operation. So that is true for this range here. For this range. So P2 line was this. So P2 line, let me redraw it. There you go. So for any price below P2, for example P5, we are making losses, and we cannot even cover our average variable cost. So P is less than average variable cost. When your price that you're charging is lower than the average variable cost, you shut down temporarily, and you come back to the business when situations improve. When you have a more favorable economic condition, you come back and start your operation again. So 3 different cases. The first one is above P1 and including P1, where price is greater than or equal to average total cost. Either you just cover your average total cost, or the price that you're charging is greater than the average total cost, and therefore you're making a positive profit. For that region, you continue operation definitely. And for any price between P1 and P2, in this range, where your price is greater than or equal to average variable cost, price is greater than or equal to average variable cost, either you are just managing to cover your average variable cost, or you're managing to cover the whole average variable cost and also a fixed portion or a portion of fixed cost. Therefore, you're minimizing your loss and you continue your business operation. And for any price lower than P2, for example P5, we pick the price P5, we find that the price is lower than average variable cost, so you cannot cover your average variable cost by the price that you're charging, and therefore you shut down temporarily. Okay. Let me move on to one more stuff that I wanted to cover. Okay, well, so far we have been talking about decisions making in the short run. So how do you take decisions in the long run? In the long run case, the thing is, the the decision rule in the long run is that if your price that you're charging is below P1, you fail to cover your average variable cost, right? You fail to cover average variable cost, but you might be able to cover some of your average fixed cost, and therefore, you shut down. Okay, so if you expect your price to exceed the average total cost in the long run, then you continue operation. So that's the long run decision rule. So in the long run, if the price is equal to P1, where you have marginal revenue equals price equals average total cost, you continue operation. Or if your price is greater than average total cost, then you continue operation. So in the long run, this region here, this red portion here, is relevant to long run decision making. Long run, your price is greater than or equal to average total cost. If this holds, then continue operation. If this does not hold, then you discontinue operation. So in the short run, we continued our operation although we had price greater than or equal to average cost but smaller than the average total cost. So we were in this region, but we continued operation. But in the long run, if we have this condition satisfied, price greater than average variable cost but lower than average total cost, we don't continue operation, we just discontinue operation. Okay, so that's the difference. Right. Now, let me introduce quickly the market supply curve. Okay, let me draw a new curve first. Illustrate something more interesting. Let me redraw this graph. Yep, price and cost here, and we have the farm's production, QF here, and our average total cost curve looks like this. Average variable cost looks like this. U-shaped curve, and marginal cost curve cuts to the minimum point. That is not cutting to the minimum point. Cuts to the minimum point of both curves. That's a marginal cost curve. Now what I'm trying to show here is that the marginal cost curve is actually representing the supply curve of an individual farm here. Why is that? First of all, we claimed before that the profit maximizing quantity is characterized by the condition where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So if marginal revenue is here, that's your marginal revenue, then this point here on the marginal cost curve gives us the profit maximizing quantity, Q1. If marginal revenue is up here, marginal revenue MR2, profit maximizing quantity is given by the intersection point between marginal cost and marginal revenue curve, Q2. So what we see from here is that you need the marginal cost curve to determine how much to produce, how many goods you want to produce. So you require the marginal cost curve to determine that. And therefore, your production decision depends on the marginal cost curve, okay? And therefore, your marginal cost curve naturally serves as your supply curve. Now, let me draw two marginal revenue curves, something we're interested in. So a few minutes back, I told you that if the price that you're charging is equal to the average variable cost, so if P1 equals MR1, if that is equal to your average variable cost, like this point here, you continue operation in the short run, and therefore your short run supply curve would be given by this portion of the marginal cost curve. So that's denoted by SR, supply curve in the short run. And we also claimed, or we also showed a few minutes back, that if the price is here, or if the marginal revenue is here, which is MR2 equals P2, where we have price and marginal revenue equals marginal cost equals average total cost, so you're covering an average total cost. In the long run, you're making zero economic profit at this point. Okay, and any price above P2 actually results in a positive profit, and therefore you continue operation in the long run. And that's why from here till here, this portion of the marginal cost curve is our actually short run, is actually a long run supply curve. Okay, so the supply curve in the short run is this bigger portion, but in the long run it's just this small portion here. Okay, that's a point I wanted to make. Now let's do something new. Let's translate the the farm supply curve into a market supply curve. So suppose we have two farms in the market. This is farm 1. Price, quantity. The supply curve looks like this. It's sort of inelastic supply curve. And we have another supply curve here for farm 2. This is farm 2. Price, quantity. A little more elastic supply curve here. To get the market supply curve, we just add these two supply curves. So this is the market supply curve. Price, quantity. If you add them up, you get a supply curve which is somewhere in the middle of these two. So probably it's somewhere up here. Okay, that's your market supply curve, SM. So you just add these two supply curves, and you get your market short-run supply curve. This is a short-run supply curve. Market short-run supply curve. Okay. Good. So this is a short-run case. Let's have a look at the long-run case now. How much time do I have left? Let's run another video.